What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. Today is a very exciting day in Pokemon Go. It is one of those double upload days, and you know when that happens, it's very exciting information. We've got Jesse and James officially added into Pokemon Go. People are very excited to be able to face these infamous two, and of course, see that Meowth hot air balloon. But with all of this attention coming into this Team Go Rocket feature now being made available at home, which means a lot of people have access to it. Maybe you haven't learned anything and everything that you need to know about battling up against these different trainers. Now, of course, the Grunts are easy to take on, but once you end up going up against the team leaders, maybe up against Giovanni, you really have to know what you're doing. So that is exactly what today's video is about. It's going to be broken down into two parts. Number one, the battle mechanics, and of course the strategies that you can use to be able to give yourself a huge advantage against these different trainers. And then secondly, the individual Pokemon that you would want to pick. Now, I'm putting that last because as we know, they could end up circling through and that information could end up being outdated. But if you end up learning the battle mechanics, you are definitely going to increase your chances of defeating those leaders. And then of course, Giovanni, if you get yourself that super rocket radar. Anyways, if you do enjoy this episode, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So I'm going to be using Team Leader Cliff as the example, but you can apply this logic to the Team Grunts, the other team leaders, and then of course Giovanni. The only difference is once you get into the team leaders, you have to be a little bit more intentional about the Pokemon that you pick, and then especially up against Giovanni, just because of the extra bonuses that they get. So I'm using a Moltres, using a Meganium, using a Venusaur, purposefully trying to show you that you don't necessarily have to have the greatest Pokemon to be able to pull this off if you know the strategy. So number one, my number one goal is to use a Pokemon out there that can get off charge moves fairly quickly. And the reason for that is because whenever that happens, they're going to automatically use a shield no matter what you do. Now, in this particular case, I got unlucky because it was a CMP tie, and you'll notice that I used a shield. I mean, they use close combat, right? A fighting type move versus a flying type Pokemon. You might be wondering, well, why the heck did I block it? Well, I can promise you, if you don't block it when you're going up against those team leaders, your Pokemon is going to faint. They just get too big of a bonus. It doesn't matter if you resist it or not. They can just absolutely smack you. So that's why I opt to use a shield in that case. The only time I wouldn't use a shield is if a Pokemon's about to faint and I just sacrifice that Pokemon. So notice that I'm not playing the game here. Like I said before, it doesn't matter. You're going to end up using two different charge moves, and they're just going to end up using shields no matter what. Now, this is going to lead into the next part, and I want you to go ahead and pay attention to this. So this is very important related to this, and I'll of course talk about why. So let's go ahead and watch Pinsir and watch what he does after the charge move ends up going off. There ends up being a pause where Moltres is able to hit 2 times before the Pinsir finally attacks us back. And that ends up happening with any type of action in this game. If a charge move goes off, if a Pokemon faints, if a Pokemon swaps, no matter who it is, what's going to end up happening is the team leader's Pokemon, no matter what, is going to skip 2 turns and then come in on that third one, which means you can gain free energy off of that. And that's something that we're going to be using a little bit later on and showcasing it to our advantage. But anyways, as you can see what we talked about before, I'm not playing the minigame. Doesn't matter, because every single time they use the shield back to back, no matter what. So we're of course trying to take down this Pinsir, and I'm thinking that when I get into the next Pokemon, I wanted to get off an overheat, but this is a caution and unfortunately a mistake that I had to learn. As you can see right here, I have overheat loaded up and I am pressing overheat. And then at the top corner, you can see that there's still an extra turn left, so I should be able to get it off. But the issue is that there is something known as overcharging, where it ends up going a turn over what you're actually trying to do. So even though I pressed it for 3 or 4 seconds, overheat never went off, which was a mistake on my behalf. But now let's go ahead and get into some pretty cool details here. So we're going up against this Electivire. We've got ourselves Meganium, and I end up noticing that there ends up being an opportunity in this particular case. You'll notice that I was pressing Earthquake there, but for whatever reason, it just didn't go off again. Now in this particular case, we're going to have to worry about the move that they hit us with, so we are going to use a shield. But when I end up getting back into it, I noticed that Earthquake did not go off. As you saw there, I pressed it, it didn't go off, but that ended up playing into my advantage, which is the second set of strategies. Whenever they hit you with a charge move, whenever you get the opportunity to get those free energy gains, you want to go ahead and charge it up those extra 2 or 3 turns, because, for example, if I had just gone off with just 1 Earthquake here, that would have meant that I would have started with 0 energy, but instead, I went ahead and attacked the Electivire 2 or 3 extra times, got my energy up, and then went off with Earthquake. And as you can see, it's almost halfway ready into another Earthquake. And then guess what? Once we end up getting off the charge move, we're going to get an additional extra 2 or 3 turns again. So I end up basically getting off 6 free turns going up against a Selectivire, building extra energy. And that's how you're going to significantly improve your chances of defeating these different Team Rocket leaders. So as you can see here, I gained all of that free energy already, right? And now, because we're going up against Selectivire and we just use a charge move, it's not going to attack for another 2 to 3 turns. So I'm going to go ahead and once again use this as an opportunity to build up that energy without them being able to do any damage to me. It's so amazing. So in this particular case, we're using Frenzy Plant because we can for sure get it off. Now we're going into the third and final Pokemon, and we're going up against Tyranitar. I actually opted to go ahead and use Earthquake just for the heck of it, just to see what would end up happening, so I could give myself the opportunity to do a switch. Now I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, let's keep both of these alive just for the heck of it, to show you how you can use the swap out for your advantage. So as you can see here, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and use Meganium up against Tyranitar and attack it 2 to 3 times. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate into Venusaur, which guess what? That swap counts as an event. So Venusaur is going to be able to get off 2 or 3 extra turns in that case. As you can see, you can manipulate when the opponent attacks you based on switching, based on getting off those extra charge moves, and in doing so, you can prevent them from attacking you. We just seriously got off 6 free moves, almost got built up to a Frenzy Plant, and were able to take it out with the Venusaur. Now, let's say Venusaur got hit with a charge move, we would still get those additional moves once we ended up bringing back in Meganium. But this is how I'm able to do this. This is the secret strategy to it. You have to use those events to your advantage, and if you can get off free damage against them, and more importantly, free energy gain to get up to your next charge move if you can use it strategically. So now let's go ahead and dive into some of the best counters that you would want to use up against the Team Rocket leaders. First thing to note is the actual structure of how the Pokemon get chosen to go up against you. The only guarantee that you have is the first Pokemon, which is going to represent the Pokemon that you will actually encounter once you end up going up against them. So we've got that Mawile, we've got Pinsir as well, and then finally with Sierra, we've got that Shadow Beldum. So those are 100% guaranteed going to be the first Pokemon that you go up against until they end up rotating out, but you're going to know what those are. But then when you get into the second and third layer, they end up being completely random, which can make it hard the first time that you go in, but it's important to go up against these leaders and figure out the exact combination of what Pokemon are up there. I can't tell you how many times I've gone up against Arlo, for example, and I've seen a Shadow Mawile, I've seen a Blastoise, and then I've finally seen a Shadow Scizor. But knowing the team composition is the first part. If you don't beat them on the first try, that's not a problem because you're gathering information. So once you know what Pokemon you're of course going up against, you can head over here, you can check this out. I'll put a link in the description to this so you can go ahead and check it out and just get a mental note of what are some of the best Pokemon, and then of course what do you actually have. Got a Houndoom, got an Entei that's powered up, so might consider using those. You can of course travel down a little bit further. I think Rhyperior would be interesting, but you do have to be careful, of course, dependent on the moveset, and you will know that once you go in there and figure out all the Pokemon, all the movesets, everything the first time that you go in. But for example, I have used Entei, but you have to be a little careful because of this move Overheat. You want to go ahead and spam to get rid of those shields, but the issue is that Overheat will lower your defense and they're going to automatically shield, so it's a little bit of a risk to do that, but I have been successful with it. But anyways, want to go ahead and point that out. So we go ahead and scroll back, and let's say for example we went up against a Blastoise. Scroll down to see the Venusaur is a solid option, so I would of course go with that. I have one that's powered up to level 40, so I'm going to go with that one for sure. But you get what I'm saying. You need to go through here, you need to check out the Pokemon that work out, and then maybe potentially try to rotate Pokemon. If you get lucky with that Shadow Mawile composition as well as the Shadow Scizor, both of them do share some common weaknesses such as ground, and then more importantly probably fire, because Scizor, for example, is going to be double weak to fire. So if you can get a fire type Pokemon to come in, take out Mawile, you can even use it up against that Shadow Scizor, which will not have any shields by the time you get to it, and then you can one-shot it if you end up timing everything right. But anyways, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you learned a lot about these Team Rocket leaders and of course are able to apply it. I want to know if you yourself employ these strategies, or if this is new. Let me know if you are successful once you go out there and of course go up against these team leaders. If you have any questions, any concerns, let us know in the comment section below. I myself, as well as fellow fans, will go in and of course try to answer the questions, and I will see you next time. If Huge shout out to the supporters over at Patreon. If you would like to get exclusive perks, make sure to check out that link in the description, and I will see you next time.